And speed. That's what we used to say up in New York. We go speed for whenever. It has to do with the old tape decks.
Oh, I got
because back in the old tape decks, once they were spinning, that meant speed. They had speed on the tape decks. So,
like Artie.
Right?
Artie,
yeah. All right, everybody. Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Early Gates Show, and we are going to be doing another episode of Bigfoot Encounters. And this one's going to be special because we have special guest John, and John and I, we have known each other since we were little kids, and John and I actually have a shared experience. So It's actually going to be fun to talk about this one because we can actually, tell each other's perspective of the story at the same time instead of, doing a separate thing.
That's right.
So, how you doing, John? Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Awesome. So we'll skip out too much of the beginning, but okay, to make a long story short, we used to have a friend whose dad had a pontoon boat out by the lake, and they lived on the lake. So his dad would let us, which I don't know why I wouldn't if I was his dad, but his dad used to let him take the boat out with. So this particular day, it was me, John, and our friend. I won't say the name because who knows if he wants his name attached to this story. So I didn't ask him, so I'll just leave his name out of it. So, okay, so we're out on the boat fishing. That was our thing we wanted to do that day. We just wanted to fish. So we're going from cove to cove, and we're on a big lake in western North Carolina, and we're going from cove to cove to cove, and all day long. We started pretty early. Probably, at least, what do you think we started? Noon, 2, 3? It was fairly early. So,
early afternoon.
Early afternoon. And then
catfish too, so we were about, having fun, chilling on the pontoon.
So it gets dark. Starts getting dark. And we had made it. Usually, you made it to the end when you get there by Rink Dam. So we had made it all the way to the end. And now there's a bar, there's a little restaurant and bar there.
Years.
Yeah. So we turn around there and we start heading back. But then our friend, he's like, let's stop at one more. Let's try. There's one more. So at the time, this is all developed now. But at that time, this cove was not developed. There was nothing there. It was all just abandoned. Who knows how many miles of just nothing was around there.
Tree line and woods coming out in the water.
Right. So it's already dark. So we're going to try this one last cove before we head back. It's getting late. Once it gets dark, you don't want to stay on the lake too. Unless you're, like you said, catfishing, if you want to do overnight catfishing. So we pull up. We pull out the anchor. And then I'll let you know what, John? I'll let you tell your version, and then I'll jump in, and then I'll add in. Well, we'll go back and forth. So what happens next?
Oh, okay. Well, I just remember me and you were talking. I don't know if he had sort of dozed off or doing something, but anyway, I remember hearing this almost like marching steps, like in the woods. I remember you saying that's not a deer, that's not a rabbit, nothing I've ever heard in the woods. I'm like, me neither. And we just kept looking back and forth to each other, not really saying much. And we're still got our rods out there. And then, we sort of look back, and I don't remember if Pierce was asleep or what, but once he was aware of what was going on, he turned white as a sheet. And he was like, that ain't no animal. He's like, we got to get out of here now. We couldn't get the fishing rods reeled in. He done cranked up the boat and, throwing it in reverse, and, he was terrified. And we didn't even know what was going on. We're like, what is that? And you had the flashlight shining, and whatever was stomping in that marching pattern stopped. We never, I don't remember ever seeing anything, but the thing stopped. And then when you took the light off of it, it started again, and he was just petrified, whatever was going on. And it was pretty wild.
Right. No, so here's the way I remember it. So he was on the back of the boat. He wasn't dozed off or anything. He was just fishing towards the back of the boat.
Okay. I knew he was away from where me and you were.
Right. We were towards the front there by the cove, closer to the cove.
Yeah.
Or the line, the cove line, shoreline, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But he was fishing off the back where the water was deeper.
Yeah.
And so we heard, it was it would have been from left to right, and we started hearing huge, foot. It sounded like a 500-pound person was walking through,
breaking branches or something.
Right, it was super loud. Like it wasn't, animals. We know what deer sound like. We literally grew up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you know what.
And I grew up literally in the woods. Was where I hung out every day when I was a kid. So
knew all those.
And it kept getting closer. And then the first thing I was like, that's no animal. And then Pierce comes walking up behind us, and he was like, I said his name. That's all right. He's like, I can always cut that up if I need to. But he said, "You damn right, that's no animal." So I was like, well, how does he know what this is? So what he does, he gets up with there was a floodlight on the boat. That's what you're thinking about, the flashlight.
Yeah, the floodlight.
So there was a big floodlight that he had on top of that pontoon boat.
Yeah.
So what he did, he pointed it to where we should have heard or seen what we were hearing.
Yeah.
He turned it on. There was nothing there. It was just woods.
Mm-hmm.
Like where he was shining it, we should have seen something that was so big that it sounded like.
That's crazy.
And he did that for a minute. I'm like, I'm like yelling at it, yo, I'm screaming at it, being me. Like, hey, who are you? But so then he turns the light off, that big floodlight, and then it starts doing it. But now it's coming around closer, like it's trying to come closer to the boat, right, towards the water, towards the boat. It will. That's the thing. If that was a deer, it would have ran off.
Ran the other way. Yeah, that's
right.
Part of the fence.
Even the bears around here, like it's not like New Jersey or certain places. Like the bears around this area, they're so scared of hunters, they avoid humans at all costs.
Yeah.
So it's getting closer to the water, and that's when I was like, what is that thing? I wanted to know what it was. I didn't want to leave, but that's when he said, pull those anchors up. We're getting the hell out of here. And it's like, get that lines in.
Yeah. Get fishing rails in.
Right. He wanted us to get the lines in and then pull up the anchors. And that's when we turned, like he cranked up the boat, and I almost thought it was going to be like in those movies where you try to crank the boat and it doesn't crank.
Yeah.
But we got it cranked right up.
Yeah.
But I still didn't want to leave. I was like, why? Because I was confused at the time.
Yeah, like
I had no idea the history of this little area.
We didn't know anything about it.
I had no idea. So yeah, so he cranks up. He's like, we're getting the hell out of here, and he zips around, and he's flying out of there. And I was like, what are we doing? I said, we weren't even done fishing. Why did we run off? If that was a person, like, here's another thing. If that was a person, that makes absolutely no sense in this area. Maybe some areas, but that is the absolute last thing anybody, even a drug addict, would do, is go, if there's people fishing on a boat in North Carolina, this area, you do not go sneaking up on them.
No.
Because that's a good way for bad things to happen.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of dudes, if they had walked up on the wrong people, these redneck dudes.
And why would they just be stomping like that? That don't even make any sense,
Yeah, and it was louder than, it was almost so loud that if we hadn't been on that boat, we would have felt it on the ground. That's how loud it is.
I never heard anything like it. I mean, it's one of those.
Okay, so we're flying down. So he's flying down the lake, and I'm trying to figure out, like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then I think you had heard from your sister, if I'm not mistaken, a story, or maybe you had already heard his brother's story.
Yeah, it was my sister's boyfriend at the time. He had told me a similar story, or the same story, where they had encountered this on a camp when he was camping in that part of the woods.
Okay.
Him and Pierce. Him and maybe there's some other guys too, but he wouldn't talk about it either. I tried to get him to talk about it, and he just refused. He'd get like Pierce did. He would just start shaking and turn white, and it's just like it bothered him. Whatever it was, he just really couldn't talk about it.
And if I remember the story correctly, they were having like a little party or something, and they had a campfire. They're hanging out, whatever. I don't know if they were playing guitar or whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
But they looked over and they saw this little creature pop up and look over, and they described it of looking like a small Sasquatch.
Yeah.
That's the way they described it. Now apparently, if my memory serves me correctly, is that our friend who we were on the boat with, that his brother had seen one of these things.
Yeah.
And he was there at that time when that happened, and he came running back to the house, and he was scared, and they couldn't understand why he was acting like that. So that was the history, apparently, of that area. Now, I would love to get the person we're talking about on the show that we were on the boat with, because he had another experience where he said he was riding on the back of a truck, and he swears he saw one of these things running in a field. Right, yeah. Might have been that same thing.
Yeah, yeah. That's pretty wild. Yeah, if you had him, he'd give you the first account of it. That'd be pretty cool.
Right. But that is definitely... I had some experiences on the property that I bought I actually got a cast of a print on this property that I bought.
A picture of that. Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Over in Caldwell County.
Yeah,
and I can't explain that one. And I'm not the type of person to be casting prints. I don't. Right. That was not on my agenda for.
You're not just bored making casts.
This was not ever on my agenda. Now, luckily, I did plenty of carpentry work and painting, so I know how to mix up joint compounds. So it's basically the same thing, just mix it up.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really weird. I'm out here casting prints. I found.
We just always we got nothing to gain by telling these stories other than like we're not getting paid to say it, so we just end up in these little encounters of things happening. So no reason to make it up.
Right. I just recently did a interview. There's this podcast called UFO Chronicles.
Yeah.
And he had me on to tell the story about. I told him the different UFOs that I've seen, but I definitely told him the one that we saw that was up over the house, and it looked like a mirror, like a ball of mercury.
And it was near the radio tower.
Yeah, near the radio tower, and it was so reflective. You could see the trees, you could see the blue sky. It looked like a mirror ball. Is the only way I know how to describe it.
Yeah,
it was big too.
Yeah, I've told several people that, and they're just like, "What?" I'm like, "You'd have to see it."
Right, and at that time we said we weren't going to tell anybody. But here's the thing: it's different now. Back then, if we had told people, they would be like, they would just laugh it off and think you're crazy. But these days, if you tell somebody, they usually have a story of their own. They'll tell you back. They're like, "Oh yeah, I saw this crazy thing." So it's totally different nowadays about the whole UFO subject.
Neat, unexplained stuff. That's wild.
Yeah. Now, didn't we see one other one? It was. Where was it? It was, I think we were, like, music again. I think we were driving to Marty's place for practice, and I thought we saw one. It looked like those drones people were seeing in New Jersey.
Yes.
It had no sound. It should have been a helicopter. It sound like the lights, the way the crazy lights were, but then when you listened, there was no sound at all. Yeah. And it was lower, and it was brighter, and I was like, we got to get out of here.
We're going to get abducted.
Right. Yeah, that was the only other weird thing I think we saw at that time. But I ended up seeing some weird stuff in Brooklyn, and then I actually caught it on camera when I was out in Vegas.
Yeah, I watched the videos in your that's crazy.
I have no idea
I don't buy the whole space trash theory.
I was looking at that, and I was like, what is it? Would happen, but there's a big Air Force base there, so I think they were doing some experiments. Had to be, because these things were flying, man. They were going faster than any plane. I was like, whoa. And they would do it, and I waited, because I saw it the first couple times. I said, I'm going to catch these things. I said, just for my own personal, I don't care if anybody believes me, just for my own personal, I want to see these things on, a video.
Right.
And I had to, because of how small they are, you have to watch on a bigger screen to really see them pop up. But they're reflective, too. They're like the thing we saw back, 25, 30 years ago. It was reflective.
And that thing was just hovering in the air like it was suspended or something.
This was being still. This one... Yeah. And we had seen it. We were driving from your house, right? Yeah. So we had left your house, and just same thing, play music. We were going to go back and start play because we had all the music and stuff, the drums and stuff set up at my house.
Right.
But we were hanging at your house, and then I don't know, we might have been swimming or something. And then we didn't live far away from each other. Mm. And as we were driving, I looked up, and I kept seeing something reflective, and I was like, "You see that?" And you're like, "Yeah." I thought it was a hang glider, because you remember there used to be the hang gliders that would always come off the mountain.
They would do that, yep.
It was something sparkly flashing in the sky, and I thought it was a hang glider. And I was like, "You see that?" And he's like, "Yeah, I see that." And we kept seeing it as we were driving towards my house. And when we finally got there, that's when we pulled in the driveway and looked up, and it was hovering right up there by the radio tower. And I was like, "Whoa!" And I ran around, I jumped up on top of the house so I could try to get a better look at it.
Yeah, that's right, crawled up there.
And if I'm not mistaken, it kind of went out behind the trees and just... It was gone.
That was pre-cell phone day, so we didn't even have a camera to get a picture. I mean, that would have been awesome to try to.
If we had a nice 4K iPhone camera, that would have been, because we were close. We were so much closer than most people have. We would have had a crystal clear photograph or video because of how close we were to this thing.
That'd have been pretty cool.
Yeah, but was there any? So I'm trying to think if there's any other. I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Think that, because I'm going to do these, I'm going to release these on audio as well, like on Spotify.
Yeah.
So like this one I'll release on YouTube, like the video version, and then when it comes to Spotify and other like Apple Music, I'll release it. It'll just be audio.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. Did you have any other Bigfoot or stuff like that, or UFOs that you saw that we didn't see, like together?
I've had some since in the nursing. I've had some ghostly experiences we can talk about sometime too that I could probably fill a whole hour with. But
That'd be great. Yeah.
One of the particular house we live in, the man that lived here before we even moved here, his wife's still alive, but he died, I think, in the kitchen somehow. I don't really know exactly, but he died. I know he died in this house, and we've seen some strange things. Like, we had a TV in our bedroom, and it would just randomly come on. And she's like, "Where's the remote at?" I'm like, "I don't know." And it would cut off and come back on, and just random stuff. And then, like, the craziest one I can think of is one day I'd come out of the kitchen into the dining room, and I swear, with my children, there was a man sitting at the table, but it wasn't like a human form. It was like a mist. But I could tell you I never saw this dude that lived here before, but I could see he had like greaser looking hair, a white t-shirt and blue jeans, and had his feet propped up, smoking a cigarette. And I asked her, I'm like, what did this guy look like that lived here? And she started trying to explain it. And I was like, I need to see a picture of him. So his brother happened to live right across the street from us. So I went over there one day, and it freaked me out because I saw his picture, and he looked just like the
Wow.
whatever you want to call it.
That's
but I mean,
crazy.
I walked around the corner and saw him. It's like it disappeared like a vapor. And I mean, it made my heart jump. And I was like,
Yeah, I bet.
I told my wife, I'm like, what in the world? She goes, I think that's the dude that lived here. I'm like, that's freaky.
Man, smoking cigarettes in the afterlife. That gives me some hope.
But I mean, he's never bothered us. It's just little things like that. And like, sometimes stuff will fall. And I don't know. He's just hanging around, or I'm not sure what. But another one of those things that happen and you don't know why and you can't explain it, but it's just something you experience, you know?
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for this, the Bigfoot stories. And we even had a few bonus UFO and ghost stories that we threw in there. So, also, you'll have to come back. We'll set it up when you have more time. You can come back and we'll do one you can tell people your ghost stories.
Oh, yeah, yeah. During the nursing days, you see some crazy stuff.
That would be great. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And we will see everybody on the next one. Bye.
Yes, sir.